Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Albertini, and today I'm presenting a paper that I developed with Maria Guarnieri from University of Leicester as well. The title of this paper, based on our in-class experience from last academic year, is Begin at the Beginning, Teaching and Learning Beginners Italian in a Blended Environment. So the context in which we experimented with blended learning was with our first year Ab Inizio Italian Beginners module in 2020, 2021. Of course, as many of us, we were faced with several challenges. We had prepared for a vaguely defined blended learning mode, but in a matter of weeks, a full national lockdown in the UK in November meant that all the synchronous provision was moved fully online. Specifically, the issues that we had to respond to and we are going to address today ranged from how to integrate effective synchronous and asynchronous materials and how to promote self-expressions of the learners, and particularly develop their oral skills in the online classroom. The question of how to meet the intended learning outcomes of exposing beginners to culturally relevant content and topics, and also how to best guide and support responsible online self-study while promoting self-reflection, motivation, and learning became quite pressing. So we, in this paper, are discussing how the careful scaffolding of resources, the emphasis on social presence and community building, and activities such as the attendance of Italian guests from different walks of life all proved to be crucial in the successful delivery of the module, and therefore will lead us to a final consideration on possible way forwards for blended learning in the language class context and at beginners language level. So to move forward, I would like to read these quotes from Anna King, discussion of blended learning, which really inspire our initial redesign of the beginners Italian model. Blended learning is an approach which takes into account different learning styles and combines different learning environments in a flexible, integrated, and complementary way in order to help support and enhance learners' diverse needs and provide a successful, efficient, and enjoyable learning experience. Furthermore, blended learning, if appropriately conceived, developed, and delivered, can support any number of learners anywhere and anytime. So when we consider the potential of blended learning, the pandemic had, of course, already hit, and the planned blend of face-to-face synchronous and online asynchronous language learning abruptly turned into a fully online experience in early November 2020, when the UK entered its second COVID-19 lockdown. At this point, at University of Leicester, the decision was taken at departmental level to continue to provide timetable synchronous sessions and to integrate them with asynchronous tasks and material for self-study. In this context, the first challenge that we had to face was how to guide students whom we had barely met through the course, and how to share with them the pedagogical rationally underpinning the design and organization of the course. In our case, for example, I met with a student face-to-face while Maria was leading the classes online. So after only few weeks of meeting the students, new students in person, we indeed moved to a fully online experience. To meet this challenge and to overcome this challenge, we scaffolded our virtual learning environment course, and we use at University of Leicester the site Blackboard, and we organized and scaffolded this course in a way that learners could navigate it effortlessly and experience it as their own flexible, adaptable, and stimulating space for self-study and self-reflection, as well as a way to engage with the teachers and the other members of the class. We therefore apply the feature listed by Le Wanlier for scaffolding in language learning to the actual design of the Blackboard site. These features are continuity, contextual support, intersubjectivity, contingency, handover or takeover, and finally, flow. And to respond to many of these features and following the principle of scaffoldings, weekly materials were organized in our Blackboard module with identical format following the principle B of contextual support. We often adopted a flipped or inverted classroom approach in order to promote inclusivity and autonomy and to reserve online synchronous time to more complex groups tasks. And as we are going to see later on in this presentation, speaking practice. So we follow the expert advice to simplify resources. And here is an example of our class in week 4. So here you can also see the use still of the English language to give instruction, but we clearly labeled each week and each activity as before class, in class, and after class. This simple yet effective intuition was praised by students and student representatives in both student surveys and staff to student committees. And in this way, this intuition allowed us to gain the group's trust and engagement. As you can see, tasks were often repeated by the principle of continuity, and information also on how long should we spend on each task was spelled out to reinforce the idea of moving within a reassuringly familiar and clearly signposted learning environment. We also promoted the use of a weekly discussion board where students would post short texts on different topics related to what we had worked throughout the week, using a set of grammar points and a set of lexes. And this is a case in point. Students were required to ask questions also on other posts, to engage with one another by the principle of intersubjectivity. But most importantly, tutors also posted an answer in order to model potential achievement, but also by regularly posting model answers with real information about themselves. The tutors contributed significantly to the announcement of social presence and to the creation of an atmosphere of connectedness and therefore a sense of community. One of the intended learning outcomes of this module is to be able to express oneself accurately in spoken Italian on the topics studied during the semester, and to be able to engage in conversation with others about those topics using relevant grammatical structure and vocabulary in accordance with the requirements of the A1 level. So providing opportunities for constructive and culturally relevant as well speaking practice online was one of the biggest hurdles we faced. Throughout the year, we encourage speaking practice in asynchronous independent work, asking, for example, the students to prepare and post short audio tasks ranging from open-ended descriptions to short dialogues created in pairs. And then in class, we work on these aspects primarily with the use of breakout rooms breakout room feature and the chat feature on the Microsoft Teams platform. So we often ask, for example, students to post a relevant picture in the chat, or indeed to post a short answer as a prompt on which to build a spoken response. Also, in designing these activities, we combine the module language objectives with aims in intercultural education to emphasize the educational purposes of the language practice. Drawing from curricular development theory and combining language education and intercultural education, we designed a module that could support the development of students' role as social agent. So able to use the language in processes of discovery about the self and the foreign culture, and to critically engage as well with the language culture nexus to master communication for creating relationships. In this sense, we design activities that could promote occasions to interact appropriately and effectively with those from other cultural backgrounds. And for instance, the Ospiti in Classe initiative was very successful. So the accessibility of video conferencing platforms made it possible for us to have surprise and or planned guest speakers who join us from Italy or other parts of the world to engage with students in presentations and Q&A sessions. So here, for example, we invited the artistic duo Chersonel, acrobatic duo, and as you can see, previous to the presentation, we suggested students to familiarize themselves with the activity of the guests and maybe trigger their interest in a way that they could come prepared to class with some questions to ask the guests. And Sonia and Ismael, for example, they are currently living in France. Ismael is Spanish, but he learned Italian. So it was a way of showing inclusivity in diversity in language representations and experiences. And through these activity of the Ospiti in Classe, we cover a variety of topics on different aspects of life in Italy or opportunities coming from speaking Italian abroad. In this context, technology helped to bring the word inside a virtual classroom and acted as a catalyst for authentic and meaningful exchange in the target language. Digital tools, therefore, clearly facilitated oral practice and promoted real-life use of the target language, with the intention to break not only language, but also cultural barriers, boosting students' understanding of culture as a brother whole and necessarily intertwined with the language learning process. Okay, so moving now to the teaching presence in the classroom and community building. So existing literature indicates that teaching presence is clearly associated with student perception of learning, satisfaction, and connectedness. So the visibility of the teacher in online learning environment is generally measured in terms of design and organization, facilitation, and direct instruction. In addition, sharing clear communication guidelines can support learner development of their own social presence, which corresponds to a higher degree of peer interaction and student-teacher interaction, ultimately promoting a sense of community building. In the building of our blended beginners Italian course, we very much therefore identify as both actors and constructors. We have, I have briefly illustrated the design and organization of our course. So the scaffolding of good and accurate materials resulted in a clear, efficient, and accessible structure. But also the choice of topics, for instance, topics linked to issues of citizenship and sustainability, also reflected well the tutors' personalities and teaching style. And also, as we have seen, for example, the answers to the discussion boards, all of these contributed to having the teacher being part of the class, being both the constructor but also the actor within the teaching and learning environment. So the effective use of digital tools in the classroom was essential to promote a positive communicative environment which favor community building. This was especially significant into a beginner course where, despite being digital natives, our students were using these tools in an academic context for the first time. As the development of digital communities in literature is described as being challenging but not impossible, we were aware that the success of these relies on the knowledge and awareness of medium and tools that are used, and a negotiation of norms between the instructors and the learners at a forming stage. So involving the initiation and the initiation of and participation in discussions about goals, liabilities, and communication styles. Furthermore, students' social presence in the online classroom is also demonstrated by the use of personal form of address, acknowledgement of others, expression of feelings of humor, social sharing, and the use of textual paralanguage symbols such as emojis and capitalization. In this sense, we especially encourage the constructive use of the chat function in class, with exchanges focusing on course contents as well as personal communication. We agree that instructors and learners share the responsibility to make community happen. And student feedbacks was very encouraging in this sense, with 66% agreeing that they felt part of a community of staff and students. And these indicators confirm our positive experience of the course from our instructors' views. So looking to the future, the global health crisis has provided us with unforeseen opportunities for creative redesign and lateral thinking. The role of students as co-creators of knowledge and the importance of community building and social presence have gained central stage, and we believe it results in fundamental changes to both online and face-to-face delivery. As language practitioners, we have been in the exceptional position to innovate in unprecedented times. An institutional commitment to invest in change will be necessary to make these practices the new normal in language teaching and learning. Grazie per l'attenzione. Thank you.